Hello, class. Um, Let me see. This week we're going over mainly backups and recoveries and some of the security tools. And so, Chapter 7, we're going to go over Microsoft Windows security profile and audit tools. Let's see. We're going to explain the purpose of system baselines, profile and auditing, and vulnerability scanning. We'll look at Microsoft Windows security profiling, Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, look at vulnerability scanning, and also Microsoft Windows security audits and tools. And of course, you'll have labs on these as well. And so, profiling Microsoft Windows security, there's a baseline or a collection of our configuration setting, and then profiling is process of comparing the real computer configurations with known baselines. And so we always want to be concerned if our baseline changes. One of the ways we can do this, our profiling, is with the security configuration and analysis tool. Analysis is the computer and compares it to the configuration settings with a baseline and applies that baseline to force the current computer settings to match settings defined in the baseline. And you can do this on Windows Server or Windows. I do have a couple videos I can show you. Let's see. Here is Windows Server, or that's Windows Professional. And here's the security configuration analysis. Windows has app development has information on it. And here's for the server, I believe.
There are quite a lot of
Yeah,
tools out there that will let you conduct a vulnerability scan of a Unix, Linux, or Windows host. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use the free Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, or MBSA, to conduct a scan. So I've already downloaded and installed the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. You can see I've got a shortcut icon here on my desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and double-click to launch the tool. Now here, MBSA can be used to scan a single computer for vulnerabilities or multiple computers. Here I'll choose Scan a Computer. It automatically picks up the local computer name, but I could also have specified the IP address. The report that it generates will use these variables where %D is for the name of the domain, %C is for the computer name, and so on. I'm going to accept the defaults for that. The options that have selection marks by default include to check for Windows admin vulnerabilities, weak passwords, IIS administrative vulnerabilities, SQL Server administrative vulnerabilities, and just to check that security updates have been installed successfully on the host. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click the Start Scan button in the bottom right. And we can now see that it's getting the latest security update information from Microsoft online, and it's begun the scan. So now that it's had a chance to scan, we can see the results of our security vulnerability scan on this host, specifically called CM001. So as we scroll down further through the results, we can see where there were problems. In this case, for SQL Server, we're missing security updates, as well as for Windows and for Silverlight, as well as System Center. But as we keep going through, we'll get a sense of what was scanned and where the problems are, such as automatic updates not being installed on the computer, even though there are outstanding updates, or more than 2 administrator accounts found on the machine, password settings, Windows firewall problems, as well as file system scans, checking to see which services are currently running but may not be necessary because they're not being used, IIS web server issues that we have to address. In this case, there are none. They all have a green shield symbol. And as you can see, as we scroll down, we can see all of the items that were tested. In this case, for SQL Server, we have a number of items like SQL Service accounts and password policies. So different vulnerability scanning tools will scan a single host, as we've done here, or numerous hosts, and will report on different items. Down at the bottom, of course, here we can print the report or copy it to the clipboard so we can work with this data in other tools. In this video, we learned how to scan a host for vulnerabilities using the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer.
Great. So that's one tool for the server. Then I wanted to show you on Windows Professional as well.
Security
Just one minute.
configuration and analysis.
Every fall
To
and
view the
winter,
charms bar,
thousands,
point to
if
the
not
upper right
millions of
or lower
people
right
fall
of
for
the
this
screen.
HVAC.
On the
Sorry
charms
about
bar, click Search. In the search field, type MMC. Press Enter. On the File menu, click Add Remove Snap-ins. In the Available Snap-ins list box,
Sorry.
In the Available Snap-ins list box, click Security Configuration and Analysis. Click Add. Click OK. In the Details pane, double-click Security Configuration and Analysis. Instructions on how to open and create a database with security configuration and analysis will appear. This is the process to use security configuration and analysis.
So that's pretty easy to do. You can do that on your own machine. And so I wanted to show you those. And of course, you will be doing
Verbo is for sharing all kinds.
You will be doing similar exercises in the lab. Let's see. So that's for server and Windows. So we use the security configuration analysis tool and can override existing settings, revert to a known configuration. Uses the security template to store the settings that make up baselines. You can see here, like we saw on the screen before, our security templates. And then a snap-in tool from MMC. So it's a little bit different from what you do in the lab. And so I just want to show those videos so you can see on a current machine. And the snap-in analysis results. So once you run the scanner, and you can also use the SCA tool at the command line as well. And then it creates a log file that enables you to save the information and look at it. And here's our command line tool results. So the MBSA analyzer evaluates part of the current security state for computers in accordance with Microsoft security recommendations, identify problems, ranks them with severity, and provides recommendations to fix each. And let's see, MBSA. So that's what we were looking at, and but I did want you to see those. Then of course you will see it in the lab as well. So you download and install the MBSA, run the MBSA, and select desired option, select the desired scan options, and review scan results when done. Let's open this. Let's see. Let's see. Just a sec. Trying to pre-open these windows to make it a little bit easier for you.
There are quite a lot of tools out there that will let you conduct a vulnerability scan of a Unix, Linux, or Windows host. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use the free Microsoft
And that's the one
Baseline
we did look
Security
at
Analyzer.
before. Just wanted to make sure. Go back to our presentation. So once you download, then you'll of course run it, and then either on a single computer or multiple computers, as was shown in the video, and then look at the results. And here's a screenshot of the image. And like I said, it identifies problems and ranks them. And just like in the video, you can enter an IP address or a range, and you can also just enter your computer that you're working on. And then you get a detailed report. Here's the MSA command line interface, and our scan results. OpenVAS is another tool that we can use. And OpenVAS is a open vulnerability assessment system. It's a open source vulnerability scanner. It scans Microsoft and non-Microsoft operating systems, and began a fork of Nessus vulnerability assessment software package. And I want to show you the Linux installation for this instead of doing completely Windows. And so here's Linux. Get these up.
Going to be installing OpenVAS on our local Linux system. So we'll open up terminal and we'll run sudo apt install gvm and OpenVAS. GVM just stands for Greenbone Vulnerability Manager.
A little bit of problems with there we go.
Fast, easy access to premium quality water can make all the difference in staying on top of your hygiene.
There we go. Here's the video.
Today we're going to be installing OpenVAS on our local Linux system. So we'll open up terminal and we'll run sudo apt install gvm and OpenVAS. GVM just stands for Greenbone Vulnerability Manager. Okay, so that should now be created. We'll now clear the page and we'll run sudo gvm-setup. Now this is a common warning you might run into when starting OpenVAS for the first time, and it's just to do with the Postgres version that you have installed on your system. So we'll change directory to the Postgres location and we'll open, using our text editor, we'll open the postgres.conf file. We'll scroll down. This is on version 14 at the moment and it requires 15. So the port setup here is 5432, which is the default port. We're going to change that to 5433. And we're going to do the same thing, go into version 15, and we're going to set it to 5432, which is the default port. So that should resolve the error that we were running into earlier. Change it here. We'll save this file. And now we'll run sudo systemctl restart Postgres. And that will restart that service for us. So now if we go back, run sudo gvm setup, it should now start building itself out. Okay, it's now built itself out. So at the bottom there you can see it says you can now run gvm check setup to make sure everything is correctly configured. In this instance, it already says that the admin user exists. That's because I previously had this installed. If it's a brand new install, you will get a new user admin and the password there as well. So we're going to run sudo gvm-check-setup. Now, what we're going to do quickly is just change our password for the user GVM. So I'm just checking to see which user exists. We've got one here, _GVM. So we'll run sudo -E-U, the username, which is _GVM. We're going to get the same group as well. And we're going to specify the user admin, and we're going to specify a new password. Okay, and GVM services are already running. So now we can launch it in our web browser. So navigating to our local loopback address, which is just our local host, on the port 9392. Now you can see there we've set it up on port 443, so we're going to change that to HTTPS with SSL encryption. Here we can input the user admin and the password that we've just saved. And there we have it. We now have access to OpenVAS on our local Linux system, and we can perform vulnerability assessments.
Great. So that's OpenVAS. You can see how you can install it on Linux. Hopefully you have a Linux system where you can try it, and it's a good tool as well. And then so it's by Greenbone Security System OpenVAS main dashboard. That's just the screen we just looked at. Luckily it was in color. There is a wizard for OpenVAS. So you can scan, again, you can see where we're scanning by IP address. You can use NetCheck, protect, limit, open fast scan results. And there's also Nessus Essentials. It's a vulnerability scanner. It offers 3 versions, and there is a free version, but it does include all the advanced options as you would expect. And I can show you a video of that just instead of showing you how to install it. You can install it for free.
Okay, we'll head over to the downloads page, tenable.com/downloads. Here we can install Nessus. Okay, so we'll select the version and the platform and hit the download button. We'll agree to this license agreement here. Download will start. Okay, we'll let that complete and then we'll launch it. Come to this install wizard. We'll hit next here, agree to the license agreement again. Okay, and now it's going to start to install. Okay, we'll finish there. And now it's going to launch the web app. We'll connect via SSL. We're going to get a certificate error here because it's running locally. And now Nessus is going to start to initialize. Okay, it's now completed. So here we can register offline if we want to, but there's no need for us to do that. So we'll just hit continue. And we'll select our version of Nessus to install. In this instance, we're going to install Nessus Essentials. We'll select that there and continue. Now we'll enter in our details. This is going to give us an activation code. Okay, here's our activation code. We'll continue here. We'll create a user account for our Nessus scanner. And submit that. Okay, setup is now complete. So now it's going to start actually building itself out. It's going to download the plugins and it's going to actually set up Nessus. Okay, here it is. It's now set up. Got a quick prompt here. Okay, we'll close that off. We can see the events here. So it's really still building itself in the background. So we're not going to be able to run any scans just yet. Okay, so we can see our update is pending here. Yep, so this is all going to be grayed out for the time being until it actually completes installing. Okay, it's now completed. We'll get a quick prompt here for starting a host discovery scan. This is something you can do. I'm not going to do that here, but now we can create new scans. So we have access to everything here apart from those of upgrade. That is, of course, for the premium service. We have installed the essentials.
Great. So that's how you install.
Wix is your platform to perform on.
So it's a good tool. You can see some of the screens here, and like I said, they're in black and white, so I wanted to show you them in color. And we get a chance to install it, use this tool. And there's a sample summary scan report, and you can see that some things it looks at like certificate, dynamic host control protocol, and some of the other devices. The next tool we go over is the Burp Suite Web Vulnerability Tool that scans web servers for general security vulnerabilities, and it scans for vulnerabilities specific to web applications. And it's a scanner requires professional license, and I'll just show you how to use it. So unfortunately, this one does require a professional license, but I'll show you how to use it to test for SQL injection.
Hi. In this video, we'll show you how you can use Burp to test for SQL injection vulnerabilities. SQL injection vulnerabilities occur when an attacker can interfere with the queries that an application makes to its database. You can use Burp Scanner to automatically flag potential vulnerabilities, or use Burp Intruder to insert a list of SQL fuzz strings into a request. This may enable you to change the way SQL commands are executed. If you'd like to follow along, you can use the lab SQL Injection Vulnerability in Where Clause Allowing Retrieval of Hidden Data. First, we'll look at using Burp Scanner. Once the lab has launched, identify a request you want to investigate. Here, from the Proxy HTTP History tab, we can right-click the request and select Do Active Scan. We can then go to the dashboard and review the Issue Activity panel, or click on View Detail for the specific scan task, and identify any SQL injection vulnerabilities Burp Scanner has flagged. Alternatively, you can use Burp Intruder to test for SQL injection vulnerabilities. This process also allows you to closely investigate any issues identified by Burp Scanner. Identify the request you want to investigate. In the request, highlight the parameter you want to test, right-click, and choose Send to Intruder. Go to the Intruder Positions tab. The parameter you highlighted will have been automatically marked as a payload position. Go to the Payloads tab. Under Payload Settings, you can add a list of fuzz strings. If you're using Burp Suite Professional, you have the option of using the built-in Fuzzing SQL word list. If you're using Community, you will need to manually add your own list. Under Payload Processing, click Add to configure appropriate values for the placeholders if you're using the built-in list. To replace the base placeholder, select Replace Placeholder Base Value. To replace other placeholders, select Match Replace and specify the details you want to change. For example, replace domain with the domain name of the site you're testing. Click Start Attack. Once the attack has finished, study the responses for interesting behaviour, such as responses that include additional data as a result of the query, or responses that include other differences due to the query, such as a welcome back message or an error message, or responses that had a time delay due to the query. If you're using the lab, look for responses with a longer length. These may include additional products.
All right, great. Sure, get this paused. Those are the videos for selected for Chapter 7. So again, unfortunately, it's a professional license, but you can use web vulnerability scan, and it shows you the scan results, and you can do a report and send that report out to others. So Microsoft Windows also does security audits. It's an evaluation or collection of one or more objects, people, things, processes, or organizations. Similar to what's in the Active Directory. Its purpose is to determine if objects of the audit meet some criteria. Security audit Windows environment is a collection of configuration and performance information compared with information contained in a security policy. The purpose is measure how well the audited computer operation complies with an organization's security policy. So most organizations have a security policy, and you're going to, meet this security policy, and every so often, run different tests and verify that you're meeting the security policy. So Microsoft Windows security audit activities is a continuous effort where we verify and secure the controls comply with security policy. So we verify compliance, we collect information, and create and performance values, and then create baselines, identify any configuration changes, analyze those changes, and view compliance with security policy. So we should be auditing all changes, configuration changes to all our servers and all our computers in our environment. And when those changes occur, we should be auditing them to make sure that there's a valid reason for their occurrence. We can do that with security audit tools, where we use Windows Security Audit involves identifying, collecting, and analyzing information, make an audit plan, and gather tools to make the task manageable, collect audit information as soon as possible, and the goal is to collect all information that an auditor can use to verify compliance and research unusual activity. So we definitely want to be auditing, anything at it, that any changes that are made at an elevated access or root access on Linux machines, for example. Example security audit tools include the the SCA security configuration analysis, Snap-in, Succeedit, MBSA, MB-Scally, and MSAT, the Microsoft Security Assessment Tool. So best practices in security audits, we need to create our initial baselines, develop security templates in SCA, run SCA, MBASA to compare the computer settings and configuration with our standards, develop batch files to run scans to collect operational information, collect information using a set schedule, archive collected data files, maintain current data backups of all information. Backups are very important for our audit files, and if we're a publicly traded company, then we may have to provide that information due to Sarbanes-Oxley. We want to enable Windows auditing only for sensitive or critical resources. We can also over audit and auto log is one thing we got to be cognizant of. Do not enable read or list for auditing for objects unless you really need the information. Do not enable executive auditing on binary files except for administrative utilities that can be used in an attack. Limit enabling all auditing actions to files, folders, programs, and other resources. Enable auditing for all changes for your Windows install folder, and audit all printer actions. Further, we need to ignore read and write actions for temporary folders, but do audit change permissions, write permissions, and write extended attributes actions. Develop Windows policies and group policy objects that are simple as possible that still satisfy security policy, and develop clear guidelines to evaluate each element of your security policy. So we should be, reevaluating our security policy from time to time. So in summary, we went over Microsoft's Windows Security Profiling. We went over the MBSA, or the Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer. We went over vulnerability scanning, and we went over Microsoft Windows Security Audit tools. And so there's a bunch of tools out there, and then of course your organization may use different tools, but at least some of these tools are free. You can download them. You can put them on your own computer. If you have a Linux server, you can also download them and install them there. And so that's chapter 7. In chapter 8, we go over backup and recoveries. And so, of course, if we do have an issue, we want to, address it as soon as possible and look up recovering any data or information. So, learning objectives to implement security controls to protect Microsoft Windows and systems and networks. Our key concepts are backup and restore procedures for Microsoft Windows Server, our clients, and our networks. And we really should be walking everywhere on the network and looking at the entire network and how everything is, what kind of backups we have. We should be approaching cloud backups, which a lot of people are working on. The discussion, this week is about different types of backups, and cloud backups is a very good choice. Of course, we always have to look at cost. The Microsoft Windows Backup and Recovery utility, we'll go over this, and there'll be a lab on it, and we'll look at virtual images as well. So the need for backups, we can do a primary copy, which is copy information used most frequently. Data is a valuable asset, can be damaged or destroyed, and backups can provide a secondary copy as well. So we have our primary copy, the one we use, and our backups are secondary copy, and we have a choice, what we're going to back up, our entire system or just the data. So our need for backups, the reasons for data loss, we can have hardware errors, such as a hard disk or disk controllers. We can have software errors as well. application areas. We can have malicious software. We can have environment or disasters like a hurricane. We can have attackers, and simple user errors can also delete data in at inappropriate times or by accident. So the needs for backups. Anytime you lose the primary copy of your data, you have two choices: reconstruct the data or recover it from a secondary source. And a lot of times reconstructing it can be difficult unless we're using some kind of RAID system. Backup process: identify files, select the target location, and set the schedule. It's much more important in Linux and Windows. Windows does some automatic backup of files where Linux does not. So backup planning: which files and folders will we back up? We'll use a static list of files or dynamically identify the items for backup. So normally we want to back up, I would say, at the folder or directory level, just because the files can change in those folders and directories. Where will we put the backup files? Will we use removable media? Does somebody have to intervene to make the backup possible? Is it going to be manually done? Or are we going to automate it? How we label and identify our backup media, and what controls we'll use to protect the CIA properties of the backup media or the confidential information. Backup is a little bit easier now. I remember how frequently do we create the backup? Will the backup your data? Will we back up data each time or do incrementals? And how many generations do we keep? And how we use the backup to recover lost data. And like I said, I remember back in 2000 when we used to back up to magnetic tape, and we would use magnetic tape, and we had a team of 6 or 8 people. I think it was 7 people. That's all they did was do backups, and they did that backups and restores all day. And so, of course, I worked in telecommunications, so we had a lot of call detail records, and space was an issue back then. So we would move files off every 45 days, and then if we needed to restore them, we would restore them frequently. And so, like I said, that happened very often. So restore process: select the target location and transfer the secondary file copies back to the primary locations. Consideration for running the restore process: copy all the files and folders from the backup media back to the original locations. How long will it take to restore the selected data? Will data lose in the restore process? And then, will the data be usable? Recovery time objective is the amount of time should it take to recover a resource or bring it back to normal operations. And so, for mission critical, we may want that near instantaneous. Sometimes it could take, days or weeks. So RTO, recovery time for servers 3 hours, full restore 4 hours. Render and verify lost data in 2 hours, and a restore is not the most efficient choice, of course. Workstation backups: we can do file history. For Windows does this automatically. It allows users to identify personal files and designate a location where they automatically back them up. And then Windows has a backup and restore utility, and it does have a wizard driven utility. I have a little short video on that to show you. Backup and restoring the Windows.
A business environment, it's essential to be able to back up your system on occasion so that you do not lose any important or crucial data. Now, of course, you can sort of solve this problem by having certain information saved directly to OneDrive in your file explorer. So if you're signed in using a Microsoft account, you can just save any of those files directly into OneDrive so that they're automatically backed up there. However, you may not want to do that, or you may just want to back up the other files on your system on occasion. And there are different tools available in Windows 10 to help you to do this. So you have a couple of different tools. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of them. If we go down to the search bar here and we just type in recovery, we can see there are different recovery options here. So we can click on create a say yes to this prompt here. Now what this does is essentially gives you access to a different drive that you have inserted or plugged into your system, be that a USB drive, a thumb drive, whatever it is. You'll obviously need to make sure that the storage is sufficient enough for your entire system. But this tool here will basically allow you to back up every single item that is currently on your hard drive so that you can restore that later on. Now, why might you want to do this? This is something that you would not do like on a daily basis, but it's something that you would do deliberately if you knew you were going to perhaps be upgrading your system or swapping out a hard drive. Those would be instances where you would do a full image backup using this recovery feature. Now this is a feature that does take quite a lot of time, so I won't go through the process of backing up my own hard drive here, but the tool is very easy to use. It will just walk you through it. You basically select the drive that you want to save the backup to, and that's all that you have to do. And then when you come back after that has been completed, you can go ahead and install that recovery to your system. All right, so after you have created the system image, how do you go about restoring that on your new system or on your fresh system? Well, what you need to do is come into the Update and Security section of the Settings application and then go to Recovery. From here, you'll want to go into the Advanced Startup, and what this is going to do is boot your PC into the BIOS. From there, you can choose to boot up Windows using a restore from a system image. So essentially this is just going to power down your PC, reboot it into a special menu that gives you just a few options, and from there you can choose to restore from a system image. Alright, so after you have clicked on Advanced Startup, what you're going to see next is a screen something like this when Windows boots up again. So you have a lot of different options here. What you would ultimately want to do is go ahead and select this System Image Recovery. And then on the next screen, it's going to ask you to select the recovery drive, and from there it's going to restore your entire system. Now there's also something called a file history backup right here within Windows 10. So we can go into File History Settings, and you can see here under Update and Security, actually let's go ahead and navigate there from the Home, Update and Security, and then Backup. So when you go in here, you can add a drive. So this says back up your files to another drive and restore them if the originals are lost, damaged, or deleted. So you can add a drive. This is the backup drive that I have connected to my system. I actually use it just to store videos and photos and things like that. So you'd go ahead and select it, and then you can turn on automatically backup my files. Now if we go into more options here, we have some different options here. Now we can have it automatically back up files on on an automatic basis here. So maybe daily would be a good time to do that. And then you can tell it how long you want to keep these backups. So if you have a very large drive, this is a 1 terabyte drive, I have a lot of space, so I could say I want to keep those backups forever. Now, what drives or what folders are going to be saved? So you can manually come in here and select which folders you want to have saved to this backup drive on an automatic basis. If there are certain folders you don't care about, you can exclude them. By default, I think it just goes ahead and backs up everything. Now, if you have connected a new drive and you want to use that for your backup instead, you can come down here and say stop using drive, and then you'll be able to select a new one. And this is also another area you can access to restore the files from another backup. So if you come down here and click here, it's going to go ahead and search for the backup. So you'll obviously need to have that hard drive connected, and then it will be able to go ahead and restore that. And then in addition, I didn't cover this just a moment ago, but you could also come up here into the backup options under Update and Security, Backup, and then More Options, and you can manually do a backup from here. So this may be the easiest way to back up your system if you are about to do something and you're afraid you may lose your data. Now what this will do is it'll restore your hard drive back to the way that it was Your settings and things like that will not be restored, though, just all of the files that are contained within these folders.
You probably
That's Windows backup, and you can see here's the screens in black and white, history, backup options. When and where you're going to back it up, the versions browser, the previous versions on a file level, and your file explorer. You can right click on a file and hit properties. Here's our utility backup restore utility. It shows you the progress as we just saw, and then we can set it to automatic. So for server backups, we store large volumes of data, provide software and data dependent services to organizational users. Use Windows Server Backup utility. Our backup plan should include methods to easily and quickly retrieve the backup images on demand. And here's our server backup. Let's see what to back up. We can back up the entire server or select which files and folders to back up, and the frequency and the time, similar to our desktops. Our network backups, backup files and folders to a network to a shared drive or device. And so, of course, that protects it from damage from if it's on the primary computer and we're not using our local disk. Drawbacks can degrade network performance. It may be slower than using local disk, may time out and fail more frequently than local resources. Cloud backups is a great option, but of course, we always have to look at costs. But we can back up data across the internet. Of course, then it's physically, it's not even on our site anymore. But bandwidth is another issue. And then, of course, we're putting the data on the internet. Even if we're doing it securely, there is a risk. And then, of course, the cost of where we keep it. But we should have a disaster recovery plan and a business continuity plan. What's going to happen, if we face different issues in business, to weather, to people quitting, to severe events. But a DRP or disaster recovery plan contains steps to restore an IT infrastructure to the point where an organization can continue operations, and identifies each component of an IT infrastructure that is critical to the primary business function, states the steps to take to replace damaged and destroyed components. And so what are we going to fix and how are we going to fix it? And, we got to look at cost, of course, how long it takes us to get out there. And, what we're going to do, have agreements with people, do SLAs, have a cold site, a warm site, or a hot site. The hotter the site is, that means the quicker we can switch it over to live. The business continuity plan includes the DRP. It ensures the IT infrastructure is operational ready, mainly focuses on IT, where the business continuity plan is an organizational plan, doesn't focus only on IT, ensures the organization can survive, and it relies on the DRP to provide the IT infrastructure. So the recovery and restoration process, we fix the problem, open the restore utility, and then slack up back image and restore. And so we use the same program, the Workstation Backup Restore, or the program that we have been using, and then we select what server we're going to recover, and how we're going to rebuild it. And so we can also manage backups with virtual machines. So virtualization is the ability to run multiple virtual machines on a single physical computer. We can do virtualization in our own organization, and of course, we can do virtualization on the cloud as well. And it has part of the cloud is virtualized machines, and the VM is the software implementation of physical computer. There's Hyper-V technology. There's VMware, VirtualBox, Virtual PC, and I use VMware quite a bit because I work in a Linux environment. Last one, just a little video on virtualization.
Today, we're going to be talking about virtualization. As you know, virtualization is a fairly old technology, but it's still super relevant to building your cloud computing strategy today. So first off, what is virtualization? Simply put, virtualization is the process of creating a software-based or virtual version of something, whether that be compute, storage, networking, servers, or applications. And what makes virtualization feasible is something called the hypervisor. So we're going to write that here. And what a hypervisor is it's simply a piece of software that runs above the physical server or host. And there are a couple different types of hypervisors out there. And what they do is essentially pull the resources from the physical server and allocate them to your virtual environments. There are two main types of hypervisors out there, one being type 1, very simple to remember, and 2, you guessed it, type 2. So let's start with type 1. A type 1 hypervisor is a hypervisor that is installed directly on top of the physical server. They're also called bare metal hypervisors, so we'll write that up here just so you can remember. These are the most frequently typed of used hypervisors, and they're most secure, they lower the latency, and these are the ones that you'll see in the market the most. Some examples would be VMware ESXi, or Microsoft Hyper-V, or even open source KVM. The other type of hypervisor is a type 2 hypervisor over here. And what makes these different is that there is a layer of host OS that sits between the physical server and the hypervisor. So, by that nature, they are also called hosted. These are a lot less frequent. They're mostly used for end-user virtualization, and you might see some in the market that are called like Oracle VirtualBox or VMware Workstation. Again, they're a lot less frequent. They're a bit more, they have a higher latency than a type 1 hypervisor. So once you have your hypervisor installed, you can build virtual environments or virtual machines, or simply put, VMs. So let's spin up some environments. So what makes a VM a VM? A VM is simply a software-based computer. They run like a physical computer, they have an operating system and applications, and they're completely independent of one another, but you can run multiple of them on a hypervisor. And the hypervisor manages the resources that are allocated to these virtual environments from the physical server. So, because they're independent, you can run different operating systems on different virtual machines. So you could run Windows here, or Linux here, or Unix here, for example. And because they're independent, they're also extremely portable. You can move a virtual machine from one hypervisor to another hypervisor on a completely different machine almost instantaneously, which gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of portability within your environment. So looking at all of this, this is the core of virtualization as a process. So let's talk about a couple key benefits that you want to take away from this. One, cost savings. When you think about this and the fact that you can run multiple virtual environments from one piece of infrastructure means that you can drastically reduce your physical infrastructure footprint. This is consolidation at its core, and the fact that you don't have to maintain nearly as many servers, run as much electricity, save on maintenance costs means that you save on your bottom line at the end of the day. Number 2 would be agility and speed. So like I said, spinning up a virtual machine is relatively easy and quick. A lot more simple than provisioning an entire new environment for your developers if they say they want to spin up a new environment so that they can run a dev test scenario. Whatever it might be, virtualization makes that process a lot simpler and quicker. And 3, lowers your downtime. So let's say that this host goes out unexpectedly. The fact that you can move virtual machines from one hypervisor to another on a different physical server means that you have a great backup plan in place, right? So if this host goes down, you can simply move your VMs very quickly to another hypervisor on a machine that is working. So with this is really virtualization today. And like I said at the beginning, virtualization is a technology that's a few decades old at this point, but it's still super critical to understand for your cloud computing strategy today. Thanks for watching as we discuss the basics of virtualization. Make sure to subscribe below and give us a big thumbs up if you liked this content.
Okay. Close that. That doesn't continue. So best practices: identify critical business functions, develop a plan to continue critical business functions, define recovery time objectives for critical resources, develop a backup plan, automate backup operations, verify backup operations, document backup and recovery, test recovery procedures, review the recovery plan quarterly. So in summary, we talked about backup and restore procedures for Microsoft Windows Server, Windows clients, and networks. We discussed cloud backups. There's other backups, of course. We talked about Microsoft Windows Backup Recovery utility, and we looked at virtualization. And of course, we can virtualize our images and contact me. Otherwise, I look forward to your discussions this week. And we will talk to you soon. Like I said, if you have any questions, please contact me.